Hello! Welcome to Jade Kind Gaming. My name is Adam, and today I am here with the 9th Actually Building a World video, where I've been over years slowly going through and actually building a world for D&D. And this episode is going to be a little mixed up. Going to touch on various subjects. But the takeaway point is I'm starting to pull things together because I am actually going to have to start running things in this world. Now, the whole point with this is that build a world and continue to develop it as I run, ideally, multiple campaigns in this world. I already have a couple in mind. But I learned just recently that the game that my buddy Bob has been running is over. My turn again. I'm going to run a quick adventure just in an old world I've used before as we're adjusting to the 2024 rules, which also means some of what I've been doing is adjusting some of the stuff that I built before to work with the new 2024 rules. So just learn that, and probably within a month, 2 maybe, I'll be running games in Amotra. I'll have begun. This is a process that I began several years ago when he started the campaign, or really before he started the campaign that he's been running. I was like, let's start coming up with a world to use long term. It's been a long time coming, but it looks like I'm actually going to start using it. So let's start going through some notes. And so we have here our note document, my master world building document, which is kind of a big text document I'm working in. Where I was last time. What was it? Let's see. So this is 9, I think 7 and 8 we're working on the map. So back in the 6th of these videos, I got to this point, and I have new stuff. That video 6 was released on, I checked, July 7th of 2022. The July 6th and 7th, so like right after I got that up, was the last time I worked in this document. Otherwise, I have basically been working on either solidifying some notes first into was it World Anvil? Great platform. Ultimately, I've not been building enough for me to justify paying for it, and I like the paid features. I'm not a big fan of its free version, so I dropped that. I'm no longer working in World Anvil. I might eventually copy things back over there. It was fun, but I've been doing some stuff in there, and a lot of what I've been doing over the last couple of years has been map. So, it's been a long time since I added it, which makes sense. First thing that I have in here is, hey, let's work on the heroic catalyst. And I came up with this concept of, hey, I know I wanted to do this star blessed. Basically, you're born under a constellation. You get just stat bonuses for your benefits. And I came up with, okay, the heroic catalyst benefits are levels 1, 5, 11, and 17. And I came up with this sort of pattern that you see here. And then the idea is it could rotate to come up with two different versions of 7 stats that would benefit. And I did a whole bunch of work. I came up with where all the stats were. I even came up with a version that I put on World Anvil. And as I did, I ended up figuring out that most of these are garbage. No one wants to take them. They're not combinations of stats that work well together. So I was like, okay, I just paused on that for the longest time. I'll get to my solution, which I did like a couple days ago. I finally figured it out, partially. But it just sat there for years, like, this doesn't work. And I didn't know what did. And then I did, I think last time I talked about the world, we were discussing, the idea of skyships. And I did further a little bit the idea there, and it's so weird to to be going over this as a new idea because it feels like, gee, didn't I come up with this years ago? Yep, it's been in my brain for years. So, I can have magic runs, got ice ships, great. If I want that, no problem. But the thing I really am interested in with them is making sure that they're an option for the non-magical side of the war. The war. People with magic, people that are like, no magic. So that the giant inflatable balloon is above the ship carrying it, dirigible kind of thing. And I want it to be aberration powered because I've started to be like, okay, their anti-magic grenades, whatever, are fueled by aberrations. They're anti-magic, but they got some alliances with creatures. It's how they're able to just fight the magic. So since that's starting to be a theme that's forming with them, or was years ago, it's definitely a theme in my mind for them now. The balloons can be like powered by aberrations, and I'm like the creature like bound with the head sticking out of the bottom center, like into like a lower deck of the ship, mostly masked with like a mouth where they could feed it blood, and its back end basically sticking up into the balloon where it excretes the gas that is lifting the airship. Anyways, weird, gnarly. The cool part of this idea is canvas jockeys. You're like, what are canvas jockeys? Guys that climb around on the netting that is over the balloon with like bolts of canvas, glue, needle and thread, rope and cloth attached rings that they can sew into, like pull things together. All the tools they need to patch any holes that are caused in the balloon. So during a battle, big aspect, or at least an aspect of the battle, could be these guys moving around the space to repair the balloon as like, a ballista bolt goes through it. And you gotta like sew it back up really quick to hold the gas in before your entire ship goes careening to the ground. And that's it. That's it for that document. But I've done more. So, I've also started working on an actual little like PDF kind of document for Amotra. Starting to put things together here. This is basically, I eventually made the decision, okay, I'm no longer going to pay for World Anvil. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to start putting the information from that elsewhere. So I copied the images onto the cover of the just the overview of the map. Quick, easy. Started coming over some stuff. Character creation. And at this point, this is a relatively recently made and adapted document. Things are being updated for 2024 rules. So we got our character creation steps, basically just inserting heroic catalyst and changing choose alignment to choose allegiances. I have an idea for determining stat generation. Obviously, I do stat generation different in almost every different campaign, but I came up with an idea. I typed it in. That basically lets you kind of choose and try to maybe avoid negative stats. For players, and of course it is based around the idea that there are 7 stats. Luck ability score, yes sir. Amotra features a 7th ability score, luck. Measures how you are treated by fate when nothing can be done within your power to affect the outcome of an event. And it's a stat that I've used in quite a few games at this point, and it goes from like the concept of growing up. There was always alright, you, call high or low. Okay. Well, then that really left your luck up to just the dice, just up to actual luck, rather than your character's luck. And I have enjoyed letting players have it where if they just don't care, great, now you have an extra dump stat. I've had players that are like, I don't care about it, I want my actual stats good. Great. Then use it as a dump stat, and that lets you better have numbers where you want them. And then I've had other characters like, oh, I love when those rolls come up. I want everything to just turn out in my favor. So it can work either way. And I intend to develop more with the stat as I go. Like I'm like just starting to think about it. Like maybe feats that let you use luck instead of another skill for like, or another ability for certain skills. Like could you get a feat that maybe maybe you can use luck instead of dexterity for acrobatics. You're great at acrobatics, but you didn't practice or nothing. You just keep getting lucky. Anyways, that's just things going on in my mind. I haven't typed any of that up. I haven't written any of that out. It's just my brain over time. I'm thinking about the game, thinking about the world, and stuff going on. Anyways, choose allegiances. I did finally write this out. This is a concept, an idea that I've had for quite a while. I'm not a big fan of alignment. I liked the allegiances system from D20 Modern better, or at least how I used it. When I was young when I played that, I don't know if I used it correctly. So, Amotra uses allegiances instead of alignment to identify a creature's personal and moral compass. The 4 alignment options are still available as allegiances: good, evil, law, and chaos. For example, a devil would have allegiances to evil and law, although I'm not sure if they would with how devil is defined in my setting. But anyways, I haven't come to terms with that. So for now, it gets the point across. Or, because at least in D&D's, devils in the monster manual, the idea is devils are lawful evil, demons are chaotic evil, and that's why they fight. I don't know that that's the thing that's going on in my cosmology. So I might change that, but for now, it gets the point across. A metallic dragon would still have an allegiance to good. Many creatures, however, do not have a cosmic connection to these ideals. Creatures who might have had an alignment of neutral are now likely to instead have an allegiance to self, or perhaps to the ideal of balance. Or perhaps they just won't have any allegiances. Other allegiances might be to a person or a group. Could be the party, could be your family. To an organization, maybe whoever's hired you. To a nation, or to a deity. Your cleric is likely to have a strong allegiance to their deity. Or something else that you value. You could just have a strong allegiance to a piece of equipment. You have a magic item that your character values over anything else, and that's where your allegiance lies. And then I have the little rules bit. You can select a number of allegiances equal to your proficiency bonus, or fewer if you desire. List them in order from most important to least important, as it may be possible you have to choose between the various things that you value. And that little bit of limiting how many you have, but making it where that number can grow over time, and having them in order, is largely me wanting as a DM to be able to pull from that list. Whether for actual game mechanics, as I develop this, maybe, or even just being able to, when preparing a session, look at your character sheet and say, the most valuable thing to this character is this. And that's important. That helps me prepare. So we got that. And then we have species. Now, species I had done in the previous document, and then I had moved on to World Anvil, and then I ended up moving them into this document, and in doing so, I have updated them for 2024, which means removing the ability score adjustments. It also means removing some of the details about things like weight and most common alignments and all that kind of stuff, which, bye-bye, I'm fine. I might add some of the more details. I might end up doing a chart of, they've had in the previous versions of rolling for weights and heights and such, because I found that useful, and I have literally in the, short-term game that I'm running for learning 2024, I've already had one of my players look at the book and be like, well, where's that chart? I have to figure out how tall I am. I was like, well, here it is in the old book. You can still use that one. But so I might still develop that for this. But for now, it's not here. I've adjusted it where instead of choosing your subrace, subspecies now, your dwarven ancestry here, it just features the abilities: dwarven toughness, natural armor, ruby magic, or stone's resistance. And each of them just lists after it. Well, if you choose this ability, this is what dwarf you are, and so it's modified from dwarfs in the core rules as dwarven toughness is what they have in the core rules, and so that's the half-dwarf. And that is the ability that the others are replacing. Otherwise, they are the same. Anyways, I do also then go into a couple other species that I had built, and I've more or less copied them over, but I do have a little more text here. For fairies, I've given them a description. The god, Ludo, the god of play, of trickery, now has a name. Made fairies as the first inhabitants of his realm, Wonderland. It was not unusual that they were so short there, where they might sing with the flowers or have an afternoon tea with the March hare. Once they started venturing out into the lands of Amotra, the material plane as D&D would normally call it, they found themselves quite unique in their short stature, but that was not enough to discourage them. I didn't know how to end the sentence. Anyways, fairy traits, going on the next page. Fae, tiny. Like a foot tall, roughly. They have the fly speed. You get to choose between pixie or sprite with your fairy lineage. Fae ancestry, I just copied the new version from elves, so they lost the unable to be put to sleep part of it. It's fine. As is, they felt a little on the power side. And then I kept Frail Build, which, it's a stat adjustment, but it's different than any other stat adjustment. It's up to you. Do you want to reduce your strength? And if so, you can get a little bonus to all your other stats or whatever ones you wanted to. And then I have Tree Folk, which I also added a little paragraph description to the beginning of Flos. I now have a name for the deity of nature. So as I've been needing them, I've been coming up with names for those. I feel like I'm going to start a campaign in the world, and I might need to just have all of them all of a sudden, so I'm starting to work on it. Flos awakened trees to inhabit their realm, expressing the beauty and might that nature can wield. It is rare for such a creation to leave the realm to explore Amotra, but not unheard of. So, that is to say, these aren't normally hanging out in Amotra, but they could have wandered out of the realm of Flos. I don't have a name for that, whatever that other plane, the plane of existence, that Flos has claimed as their own. But anyway, so it's a rough note, but it gives the idea, gets it going. And so this is the other extreme. Tiny fairies, I have huge trees, so they still have their inhabit plant feature, which is just as brutal of just letting it die as it ever was. I think I might have just copied and pasted it. I think I rewrote natural armor to work a little bit more with how things are written with the new rules, but it's same power. And I've called the choice of which type of tree you are, your seed. What seed were you born from? So oak and willow, the little extra AC, or the natural weapon whips. But basically all that, same as it ever was. Now we get to Heroic Catalyst. And the thing that I started with, that I'd not been happy with, that I fixed, here. So, starting with text, I actually finally wrote out some of the details of it. And this is because I'm like, I'm going to have to run this game, and I'm going to tell them to choose a Heroic Catalyst. I have to be able to tell them what it does, and at least have a couple of options. And it looks like it might just be the stat options, or the one that is needed for the game that I'm going to be starting with. But we'll start with the text, the description. What is a Heroic Catalyst? It is what sets you aside as a hero. You have potential that the normal commoners don't have, and the ability to grow in power over time as you advance beyond others. This grants you a number of benefits, some depending on your catalyst selection, and some that every hero gets. You select your Heroic Catalyst from the options below at first level, and your choice grants you benefits at levels 1, 5, 11, and 17. Okay, so it's the idea, it's how, you're gaining levels. Obviously, there are NPCs with levels that might not be heroes, but they have levels. So I didn't strictly say you cannot gain levels, but it's like that idea of you're advancing in power, because ultimately most of those NPCs have a stat block, and it doesn't matter how long it's been since you fought them last, they have the same stat block. But there's more than just the powers that you're going to get later on. The game rules as described in the core rules function as normal for you because you have a heroic catalyst. Creatures without a heroic catalyst are specifically affected differently by healing magic. I might add more things later, but healing magic is the one that I wanted to call out and write down beforehand, because players might be trying to heal NPCs, and it's not going to work the same on them. So that way, rules as written work for players, easy at the table. The DM can remember, here's what's different for NPCs. Magic that restores hit points only restores half as much hit points to creatures without a heroic catalyst. It's just harder to raise them back up. Magic that returns a dead creature to life fails, and thus the creature without a heroic catalyst succeeds on a DC 20 luck save, and the same spell can't be cast on the creature again, and thus another spell succeeds and they die again. So, in other words, like, in order to raise a creature from the dead, it has to succeed DC 20 luck save. Now, assuming they have average luck, that is 10, no bonus, not proficient in that save, they need to roll a 20. Obviously, some characters, maybe someone is lucky and they proficiency with the save, bonuses that. So some NPCs will still have, more than a 5% chance of resurrection working. But just the normal everyday character that I haven't bothered to think too much about, that just has average in all their stats, 5% chance. And then, if that spell fails, you can try the other spells that raise you from the dead, but you have to do a different spell each time to get a new chance. Now, magic that removes curses, cures conditions, or removes reductions to ability scores or hit point maximums. Your remove curse, your lesser and greater restoration, those ones. That fails, and thus the creature without a heroic catalyst succeeds on a DC 18 luck save. And again, same spell can't be cast on the creature to attempt to remove the same penalty again. So yeah, that's the new NPC norm. They're not heroes. That heroic life-saving magic isn't quite as potent on normal people. So, options below. First option is Starblessed. They're heroes born under the blessing of a particular constellation. It's a great option for players who want a quick heroic catalyst option that just increases a few of their ability scores as they gain levels. And right now I only have 7. I tried to do 14 the first time, and I intend to add more. I might actually add one based on each class. But for now we have the 7 animal constellations. The Bear's Endurance, was removed from the way that the enhance ability works. So just to keep that flavor in the world. As the bear, your constitution score increases by 2 to a maximum of 20 at level 1. Great. At level 5, you get +1 strength, +1 con again. Level 11, +1 strength, +1 con. At level 17, +2 to constitution again, this time with a maximum of 30. So if you start with a 16, you're going to end with a 22 without putting anything else into it. So that way, and we have that for each stat: the bull for strength, the cat for dexterity, the bull for strength with a side of luck, cat for dexterity with a side of wisdom, dolphin, new one here, known for its good fortune, dolphin is luck with a side of intelligence, eagle is charisma, the side of dexterity, the fox is intelligence, the side of charisma, and the owl is wisdom, side of constitution. So that way it's basically you're getting over a few levels +2 to a secondary side stat, but otherwise you're getting +6 to the primary stat that this focuses on. So that's enough that it should be like, oh, I want to be good at that. Let me grab that. That's the one I want. So that gives us options. The first selection of constellations, and it should be good enough for, for us to get started. Players that want to play, you can see at the bottom here, the other heroic catalyst I have is Historic Wizard, because my first campaign in the world is going to be a Wizards game, founding of like a wizard school, the earliest of wizards. And basically, players can just play a wizard, or they can play another caster, spellcaster, and take this heroic catalyst to add what they need for them to count as a wizard for the purpose of this spellbook. So, anyone that just wants to play a wizard, I mean, they're probably going to take like intelligence, but whatever. If they want to take one of the others, they can. So, it at least gives them an option for what to do with the heroic catalyst if they choose to play a wizard. Otherwise, Historic Wizard is my other heroic catalyst. They're not wizards as we know them today at all, but they practice spellcasting from other classes in the same fashion as wizards do from spellbooks. You must have the spellcasting class feature, and you must not be a wizard. And whatever first level class has spellcasting that qualified you for this, that is your historic class. And so, like a ability in a class would normally say, your wizard level, it's now going to say your historic level. If you based it on being a cleric, then that word historic means cleric for you. If you based it on being a bard, then it means bard for you, because all the abilities are going to be referenced in it, because it is adding the wizard's spellbook and features from these rules to your class. If you are a cleric or druid, for better or worse. I think for the other casters it's better, but cleric or druid, who could normally pick from their entire class list, now have to choose from a spellbook, and you're just populating your spellbook as you go. So you get that, redoing the rules for preparing spells, how to change prepared spells. For other classes that used to only get to change them with levels, now you get to change them on your long rest, but from your book. I do also update the spellcasting ability that if you want to be an intelligence-based, whatever that other caster is, you can. It's not going to update their other abilities, but you can use your intelligence for your casting stat if you would like, because that's another wizardy thing. And then you get to copy spells into your book from if you find like a scroll from your bard class spell, you can copy it in, or wizard. So that's definitely a better thing. If you're a cleric, you now have access to more spells that way. At level 5, I give them Ritual Adept, just as it is here, and then also a couple of wizard spells. I'll give those again at 11 and 17, so you're going to at least, even if you don't go copy things into your book, you're going to end up with 6 wizard spells in addition to whatever your normal spells are. But then at 11, I also gain Arcane Recovery, so these are getting abilities much later than a wizard would get them, but they're abilities that you don't normally get, so cool. And then 17 is Memorize Spell, again, from the wizard. So it's just taking wizard abilities and applying them to another class. I then do have a section here, World of Amotra, and it just is the origin. I believe that in the 6th of these videos, I went over the origin of the world, and other than a couple spots where I have added the names Flos, God of Nature, or Ludo, God of Trickery, other than those spots, everything should be the same. I just literally copied and pasted it into this document so that if I hand this document out to players, they have that bit of information on the world. But yeah, so that's, I think, it for what I have in there. But I do have one more thing to go over, and that's our map. So, we have this map that we came up with. And last, we came up with the features here. But if we turn this off, we take our world, I've done how it'll work. I added, or started adding, rivers as the next step. Again, following Artifexian's rivers video that he came out with a few months ago. So I started by, all the way around, adding the river basins by basically coming up with where the highest points are, drawing my lines. Rivers are going to be between these. And then I started feeling like, I'm going to need to focus. And very recently have learned, yes, I need to focus. I'm going to have to run very soon. So, as I came up with primary rivers, I only did it right here. Because this is the region of the world that my first campaign is going to focus on. So, we have our primary rivers through these areas. Some of them are smaller than others. Some have dashed lines because ultimately they are going through deserts. And so not much of the moisture, a lot of the year there's actually not going to be any river there. But that's where it flows the times where it does. So I came up with that. And then I also came up with secondary rivers specifically in the area that the game really focuses on. Because the campaign in general focuses on this area, but the first campaign, at least starting, is definitely in this sort of region here. So I have the secondary rivers, rivers that feed into the bigger rivers, or just smaller rivers in the area. So I did that. Now, I did that in part because in certain areas, I needed them to figure out political borders. And I needed to start doing that because I had to figure out, and I don't even have names for the nation yet, but like the Magic Nation is where the first campaign takes place. They are setting up the Mages College that ends up being in the city that is, attacked by the anti-magic place when I do the war campaign. So I have to have that figured out. I also, while doing that, had to come up with where's the nation that is against magic. I wanted to make sure I had area buffering between them, so there'll be probably some other continents between here. Those details I need before I start running things that are relevant with the war, but I just had to kind of know some things for now. And so just kind of coming up with what nations do we have? Where are relevant rivers? And so yeah, I've done just a little bit world building, but it's now focused into this area and figuring out, well, what am I going to need? Because I got a month or two and I'm going to be running a game in this. I need to figure out a name for that nation. I need to figure out some city names. Probably some more of the deities. What are they called? But I'm starting to put things together. I'm starting to focus on, well, what am I going to need to actually play the game in this world? And yeah, that's what I got. I don't know if I'm going to end up actually getting another one of these out before I start running. I mean, that'd be very quick turnaround because these have been months apart, but they might end up being more frequent now that I'm going to be running a game in the world. Because I'll have to be figuring out more stuff. It's a little scary, but it's exciting because I've been slowly building up to this for years. And I'm excited to get into the world. It seems fun. I'm looking forward to it. But I'm not really sure what's ahead of me. But I'm gonna keep working on Amotra. So, if you want to continue finding out how the world develops, subscribe. Let me know in comments about your own world building journey, or if you just have ideas or questions about something for your own world that maybe I would have a thought on. I like building worlds. Comment below, subscribe if you haven't, like the video. Thank you for watching. Bye.